Georgia Northwestern Technical College wants to help put you to work. Our programs in business, health, industrial, and public service will train you for the jobs available today. GNTC offers schedules in day, evening, and online classes at 5 campus locations with financial aid options too. You are sure to find a career path that works for you with our variety of degrees, diplomas, and certificates available. Visit us in person or on the web at gntc.edu. Georgia Northwestern Technical College. Your career begins here.
Welcome to Gridiron Central. I'm your host, Jim Allred. As always, joined by my tag team partner, Matt Davis from 95.7 The Ridge. Matt, we're heading to the second round of the playoffs. We have 4 local teams still alive. Is this exciting or what?
It is extremely exciting, and of course, when you look at Coosa, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit, I think it's been 10 years since they've been in this position. For Model, it's been since 1979, so this has been a really special season for those 2 teams in particular, and there are a couple others I know we'll talk about. So you're right, man, this is really fantastic. I can't wait.
Definitely so, and we would be remiss if we didn't mention Darlington lost a tough one last week against Washington Wilts. Chattooga only lost by 4 in their game. Sonoraville put up a valiant effort, as did Cedartown and Rockmart. No shame in any of those teams making the playoffs. But we're talking about this week's playoff games, and we start as Coosa makes the trip to Vidalia. The Eagles last week beat Greene County 14-7 in overtime. I was on the sidelines of what was a very, very exciting football game. Matt, it was Coosa's defense that made the difference in that game. Can Coosa's defense hold Vidalia down?
We'll see. Coosa, obviously, their defense has been the hallmark of the team. You know, Coach Wheeler said going into the season, we're going to be a defensive football team. But the problem that you run into in this situation, Vidalia scoring about 42 points a game. They also have a good defense, giving only about 11. And the difference in Vidalia and a lot of the other teams that Coosa's faced this year, you know, most of the teams that Coosa's faced might have 1 or 2 guys that can run the football real well, and then a few guys that play some roles. But Vidalia, they've got several guys that can give you a 100-yard game. And I think that's really the glaring difference because they had, I think, 3 guys that rushed for over 300 yards last week and just tore up a ton of offense. So, unfortunately, I want to pick the home team every time, but I try to be as realistic as I can when I make my picks. I think that Coosa is going to end up losing this game. They've got a huge road trip. It's a long way to get to Vidalia. It's going to be a pretty hostile place for them to play because it's so far, and, of course, these fans are going to be really into this game. At the end of the day, I just think it's going to be a little bit too much.
Gotcha. You know, last week, you know, after the game, Coach Wheeler talked about the defense and how great they played and talked about the whole team and how great it played. And look, you know, the 14-7 game, the game really wasn't that close. Greene County really only had the 1 scoring drive of any effort. The problem was Coosa couldn't put enough points on the board. They had a couple of turnovers, which hurt them, of course. So they had 2 or 3 interceptions against Greene County, which hurt them as well. Vidalia, they are a phenomenal team. A lot of people think they might be the 2nd or 3rd best team in all of Class AA. It's not an easy game to play, but this is the second round of the Class AA state playoffs. None of these games are going to be easy. What I do see is that last week, even with Vidalia's phenomenal defense, they gave up over 30 points. So, you know, Coosa's offense has not been that great. They're a good offense. They're a solid offense. Can't have the turnovers. That's the number 1 thing. The number 2 thing, you're going to have to score at least 3 touchdowns because I think Coosa's defense will limit Vidalia's offense. I believe they will be able to. I'm not saying shut it down, but I think they can limit it. That being said, it's at Vidalia. Awfully tough place to play. I think the game is going to be far closer than anyone gives credit for because I think a lot of people are going to predict a blowout here, not me. I think Coosa is going to take it to them. I think they're going to play extremely well. In the end, I have to say I do think Vidalia wins. At home, I think they're just going to be about 7 points better than the Eagles. That being said, Coosa's defense, prove me wrong. Coosa's offense, prove me wrong. Get out there, play a great game, and get this win. Try your best. I do believe Vidalia wins. We agree on that one. Moving on. Model at Fitzgerald. A week ago, I was talking to Nakiah Watkins and Dax Bishop. They both told me we are going to make a statement. They most definitely did that. Watkins with over 300 rushing yards, now roughly around the 1,800, if not the 1,900 mark on the season. And this is a guy that was pulled out of a couple of games late and was injured in another one. He could easily be right around 2,200 this year if that hadn't happened. Big win on the road. Model's offense scored, what, 50 points, if I remember correctly? 50 points. First playoff win since 1979. Do they get their second playoff win since 1979 at Fitzgerald, Matt?
I think anything is possible. You know, I think the biggest thing is that Model's only averaging about 24 points a game. Like we were talking about with Coosa, the defense has been solid. I think they're giving up an average of about 11, even though they gave up 36 points against Union County. And Union County has a tremendous quarterback. They really do. He threw the ball a lot in that game, and they had some success in the air and scored some of their points kind of late in the game. But Fitzgerald, they give up more points than Model, around 21, but they score a ton of points. Their quarterback, he's rushed for over 1,700 yards. They've got a couple of running backs. I know one in particular that's over 1,000 yards. They've got a lot of speed on this team, and what they'll do is they'll line up in a shotgun formation in a wing T type of offense, and they've got guys going at you every way possible. The quarterback can run, the wing backs, they can run. So they've got so many weapons on offense. I think that's going to be one of the areas where Model struggles. Another area that I think is difficult is that Fitzgerald has a big roster. And from what I'm told, with the exception of maybe a couple of skill players, they don't have guys that play on both sides of the ball like you see with a lot of our teams, including Model. So they're going to have guys that are out there with fresh legs that are not worn out by the end of the game. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Model is going to put up a very valiant fight. This team is on a mission. They're as motivated as any team I've ever seen at Model. They're a lot of fun to watch, but at the end of the day, I think they're outmanned in this game. I want to pick Model. My heart really wants me to pick Model, but at the end of the day, I got to pick the team that I think has the best shot of winning, and I think that's Fitzgerald.
You know, it's at Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald traditionally is a very powerful team. One thing I'll note about Fitzgerald, they did give up a lot of points last week as well.
It's true.
Another team was able to come in there and put up some points on them. Model can score, and I've said all year long, Model needs to clear that 24-point mark. Well, against Fitzgerald, they may have to clear the 44-point mark. They did it last week. For the defense, it's assignment football, and this comes to me back last week from Dax Bishop, who said, look, we can't give up the big plays. That's never more true than this week against Fitzgerald. The Blue Devils can't give up the big plays on defense. They can play assignment football. They can play sound assignment football. If they can do that, they've got the athletes to match Fitzgerald. Yeah, it's going to stink because Fitzgerald, has players, they don't have to play both sides, but, this time of year, it's going to be colder. Look, Model can put up with it. Model's offense, if they can get going, if Watkins can get going, anything can happen. Again, I hate to pick against our home teams twice in a row. It's a long trip to Fitzgerald. It's going to be tough. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm hoping in both of these games, Coosa's defense and Model's defense play like they have all season, don't give up the big plays, and they both end up with upset wins. However, I'm going to be like Matt, and I'm going to pick Fitzgerald. After the break, we have two more playoff teams to talk about, two more playoff games to talk about. Stick around.
Georgia Northwestern Technical College wants to help put you to work. Our programs in business, health, industrial, and public service will train you for the jobs available today. GNTC offers schedules in day, evening, and online classes at 5 campus locations with financial aid options too. You are sure to find a career path that works for you with our variety of degrees, diplomas, and certificates available. Visit us in person or on the web at gntc.edu. Georgia Northwestern Technical College, your career begins here.
Welcome back to the show. As always, we'd like to thank Georgia Northwestern Technical College for bringing you the Emmy-nominated Gridiron Central for the last 8 seasons. 2 more games to talk about. These are in the Class AAA playoffs. Adairsville and Calhoun both still alive. Of course, Adairsville won big last week. This week they traveled to play Blessed Trinity, what is a very talented Blessed Trinity football team. Adairsville's coach last week mentioned it's going to be very tough for us to beat Blessed Trinity. Look, the Tigers' offense is very good. The Tigers' defense is very good. Blessed Trinity's offense is very good. Blessed Trinity's defense is very good. Matt, who wins this game?
I think Blessed Trinity wins. I'll just go ahead. I won't build up any suspense or anything. And I think the main thing here for me is when I look at Adairsville, they've had a phenomenal season. As you mentioned, the offense has been explosive. They've had a much better defense this year. This has been one of the best Adairsville teams that we've seen, and we've seen some good ones here recently.
Yes, we have.
But the biggest difference between these two teams is the schedule. Because when you look at Adairsville, beyond Calhoun, what real tough opponent have they really faced? I mean, I know they played Ringgold and Sonoraville and some teams that are pretty good. But beyond Calhoun, they hadn't played like a really, really good team. Now, Blessed Trinity, they beat St. Pius. They beat Creekview. They beat Westminster, Cedar Grove. They played some pretty tough teams. They've really had a tough schedule, and I think that's the big difference maker. I think they've kind of gone through the gauntlet, and they're going to be a little bit more prepared in terms of going up against tough competition than Adairsville is. Adairsville may make it interesting. They may pull an upset. But I just think when you look at this game, Blessed Trinity is a better football team.
The competition level that Blessed Trinity has played is above what Adairsville played. I don't think there's any doubt about that. What I like about this Adairsville team, and I've said it all year long, special teams is good. Their defense is far better this year than it's been in the past few years. Offense is always been good. There's a lot of experience on this team. The other thing about Adairsville is I think they're still wanting to make a statement. You know, they won the first round of the state playoffs, a game most people thought they were going to win. They want to get out of here and make a bigger statement. Beat Blessed Trinity at Blessed Trinity. That's a huge statement. You know, Adairsville didn't get an easy bracket to play in. Of course, it is the AAA playoffs, and there were a lot of teams that were 9-0, 10-0, 10-1, 9-1 coming in. Adairsville being one of them. They only lost to Calhoun. Adairsville needs to go back to that Calhoun game and do what they did against Calhoun, except don't let the tidal wave take over. They've got to play their game. They've got to take it to Blessed Trinity, and they've got to believe they can win. That's one of the big things. I agree with Matt. I hate to, again, pick against one of our local teams, but I think that Blessed Trinity on paper is the better football team. However, I think Adairsville is a very good football team. I've said all year long, if Adairsville can get that momentum going, they can make a run in the Class AAA playoffs. To make that run, you've got to upset Blessed Trinity at home. I don't think it will happen, but I do think the game will be close. One last game to talk about, Cedar Grove at Calhoun. The Yellow Jackets now 11-0 on the season, looking to get to the third round of the state playoffs for, what, the 7th or 8th consecutive season. Matt, did the Yellow Jackets make it?
Well, the Yellow Jackets, they've ran the table this year. But like what we talked about with Adairsville, how tough has their schedule been? Yeah. I mean, they beat Adairsville, but beyond that, you know, you had Dalton. That was a close game. And they've had a little bit of competition throughout the year. But the difference maker for me in Calhoun always is how many years have they made it to the playoffs and made pretty deep runs? I mean, these kids, they see this year in, year out, and I don't think they're intimidated when they go up against a team that's going to be tough competition for them. This game's at Calhoun. We've talked about it many times, what the atmosphere is like there. It's definitely a very tough place for opposing teams to travel and go and play. So at the end of the day, I think Cedar Grove will be definitely a formidable foe for them. But I think that Calhoun is going to find a way to win this game. They'll probably win by a touchdown or maybe even 2.
I'm not so sure Cedar Grove is going to be a formidable foe for Calhoun, and I disagree a little bit. Dalton's still alive in the Class 5A playoffs. Calhoun beats them. Yeah, it was a close game, but Dalton, I mean, hey, they were the Region 7 5A runners-up and lost that game on a last-second touchdown pass for crying out loud. So that was a tough game. Carrollton is always tough. Granted, Carrollton was off this year, but they played them, and then again, Adairsville's not bad. Ringgold as well. You know, maybe not the same level of competition as Cedar Grove, but they played 2 or 3 really outstanding teams. The key thing in all of this is because Appling County upset Peach County in the lower half of this side of the bracket for Calhoun, Calhoun, if they win this game, will be at home next week, guaranteed. Most people in the state thought that Calhoun and Peach County were number 2, number 3, and a lot of people had Peach County ranked as a number 2 team, not Calhoun. Well, guess what? That ain't happening because Appling County took care of Peach County. I'm not saying Calhoun has a clear path to the state finals because there's still Cook down below and a couple other teams that could come in there, maybe Central. But Calhoun, if everything is right, if they are as good a team as we think they are, they should be able to make a run to the state finals. Cedar Grove, they're a stumbling block. They're a roadblock. They're a hurdle. If Calhoun comes out and plays Calhoun football, they will beat Cedar Grove. Look, Calhoun rarely ever loses at home in the state playoffs. In fact, I think it's been, I can't remember if it was GAC or one of those teams, but it was back 07-ish when I think it happened last. You don't beat Calhoun at home. I almost don't care who you are. Calhoun wins this game. I don't know if it will be big, but I do believe Calhoun wins, and I think we'll see Calhoun in the Dome before it's all said and done. So we're picking 1 team to win and 3 to go home. We're hoping that all 4 win, so we have a lot more to talk about next week on Gridiron. Matt, where are y'all going to be this week?
We're going to be in 2 different places. Phil and I, we're going to be heading down to Fitzgerald for the model.
You're cloning yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can be in 2 places. That is awesome. I need to get that technology myself.
And then we've got Ben Poplin. He's going to be hitting the road with the Coosa Eagles going down to Vidalia. So we've got some long road trips coming up this weekend, but there's no place that we'd rather be than covering these local teams. And I hope that both of us win the Knuckleheads of the Week award next week and are wrong 3 out of 4 here. Because like you said, I hope Calhoun wins, and I hope we're wrong on the other 3.
Hey, I think the Darlington fans were calling me the Knucklehead of the Week almost every single week this season. I'm sure Model fans and Coosa fans have done the same thing throughout the year. And, of course, Friday night, live scoring updates from all 4 of our games. Later in the evening, you can come back to PrepCentralOnline.com. We'll have articles to go along with all of those. And then next week, we'll talk a little bit more playoff football if any of our teams are left, and we're hoping that it will be more than one. For Jackson Witzel, Matt Davis, I'm Jim Allred saying we'll see you on the sidelines Friday night.